Hello, class. This is Mr. Whitby, and today I'll be going over Alexander Hamilton and national finances. So, our objective for today, TLW, means that the learner will be able to explain how Alexander Hamilton created a national bank to strengthen the U.S. economy. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this. Okay, so before that we really start, I'm going to give you guys some facts on Alexander Hamilton. But what I want you to remember, the United States at the time is an infant nation. It's a baby nation that's just being born, it's just being created. We broke away from Great Britain. We broke away from Great Britain because we believe that the government became a tyrannical government. A tyrant is a person with too much power. So the founders, as well as Americans at the time, feared too much power. They did not want big government. So when you guys are going through this PowerPoint, this presentation, keep that in mind. Most Americans did not want their government to become too big, too powerful, too centralized. They wanted to keep government small. They wanted to keep the power. If the government had the power, they wanted it to be at the local and the state level. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at Alexander Hamilton. So Alexander Hamilton was appointed to be the Secretary of Treasury by who? George Washington. He came into the office when the United States had a huge national debt because the United States had to pay for the expenses that it occurred in the American Revolution. So we owed $40.4 million domestically. So that means that we had to pay ourselves and our citizens $40.4 million. And then we owed $11.7 million to our foreign allies. Now, in order to basically kind of pay for this debt, the country sold war bonds that basically at the end of the war, we could not afford to pay back. So let's go ahead and look at what is Alexander Hamilton's approach to deal with the federal debt. So Hamilton wanted to pay for the foreign debt immediately and gradually repay the total value of all bonds. So the states owed $25 million for the Revolutionary War, but Hamilton wanted the federal government to pay for $21.5 million. So let's do some math. I want you guys to think about this. What's the difference between the $25 million that we owed in the Revolutionary War and the $21.5 million that Hamilton proposed? Think about that. Hamilton believed that paying the state's debt would help the national economy. Increase business and trade would result in more government revenues. All right, so there were major critics of Alexander Hamilton's plan. Many people, especially in the southern states, opposed to Hamilton's idea of using the federal government to pay the debts of other states. Many in the South believed that Hamilton's plans were unfair and unconstitutional. They believed that it was unfair because the southern states didn't really have or didn't make up much of the debt that the Americans had incurred during the American Revolution. Patrick Henry said it best. He said he did not believe that the Constitution gave Congress the power to pay state debts. But Hamilton needed the backing of the Southern representatives to get his plan approved, and he knew this. So playing politics by moving the capital. So in order to basically promote and get his national bank, Alexander Hamilton had a plan. So Southern officials wanted to change the location of the nation's capital because they believed that having the nation's capital in New York gave the North too much influence over national policy. What you see here, you're already seeing this sectionalism happening. You're already seeing the division of the northern United States versus the southern United States. Keep that in mind. Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison met in June of 1790 to discuss moving the capital to the South. in return for political support of Hamilton's debt plan. Therefore, there was a compromise on the capital. The national capital was moved to Philadelphia in 1791 for 10 years. George Washington chose a place on the Potomac River that included part of both Maryland and Virginia for the capital's new location. The site would eventually become Washington, D.C. All right, so go ahead and look at contrasting views on the federal government. So if you guys pause this, you guys will kind of see their political philosophies. You can read through this and check out their political philosophy, but go ahead and pause the video and look at it. Let me point out a few things though. Alexander Hamilton believed in concentrating power in the federal government. He was a Federalist. Whereas Thomas Jefferson was from the South, so he believed more in state and local governments, and that the national government, the federal government, should have strict limits. So you have one that supports federal rights, strengthening the federal government, which is Hamilton. The other one, Thomas Jefferson, a Southerner, believes that there should be limitations placed on the federal government, and he's more for states' rights. Hamilton's plan for a national bank. Alexander Hamilton wanted a national bank where the government could safely deposit money. He believed that the U.S. should develop a national mint, or basically an organization that has the authority to make its own coins, to make its own money. His political opposition wanted to protect state rights, so Hamilton compromised by suggesting that the national bank have a 20-year charter that had to be renewed by Congress after the time, passed. He encouraged each state to start its own bank so that the national bank wouldn't have a monopoly. Political critique of Hamilton's plan for the national bank. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were two of his strongest opponents. They believed that Hamilton's plan for the economy gave too much power to the federal government. They believed that the Constitution did not give the state the right to create the banks. Hamilton quoted the Elastic Clause, which stated that Congress could make all laws which shall be necessary and proper to govern the nation. Creation of the Bank of the United States. President Washington and Congress agreed with Hamilton. They hoped a bank would offer stability for the United States economy. In February of 1791, Congress enacted the charter for the Bank of the United States, the country's first national bank. Okay, so as an assignment, we want to focus on writing. Let's go ahead and write a short paper with 4 to 8 sentences nominating Alexander Hamilton for a Nobel Peace Prize. Include some of the details that you learned in this presentation in your writing.